I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you all to New Delhi for the training workshop for parliamentarians and parliamentary staff on prioritizing ICDP and SDG.
Before starting, I just want to express my appreciation to IAPPD, especially Mr. Manmohan and his staff members tirelessly working and preparing for this workshop. And we really appreciate our partnership. And we have a very packed schedule today and tomorrow, and our excellent facilitator, Mr. Lucy Jones, have prepared this packet. You have probably seen this packet. This is, I would say, the treasure of information of SRHR. And if you have this, hopefully you will make this as a Bible and to use it for your advocacy as well. And the three things I just want to briefly ask for you is learn and share and contribute. So learn today, please learn as much as possible and take advantage of this opportunity to learn from Lucy and also from each other. And the second is share. We would like you to share this information with your own countrymen and fellow men and women parliamentarians. And please help us to identify who would be the key persons to make a decision making on this SDG process for your countries. And we are happy to, as Honorable Biplav mentioned, that we are happy to come to your own countries at the country level workshop as well. So please help us and share the information as much as possible. And contribute is, please contribute to our work, AFPPD, regional network of parliamentarians. And we are going to enter a new stage, setting up 3 standing committees. One is gender equality, women and empowerment. And the second one is investing in youth. And third one is active aging. Each member country, national committee, requested to choose 2 topics, 2 standing committees, and to send a delegate, and then make a strategic decision recommendations to our executive committee. So we will communicate with you, but please learn and share and contribute to our work. And then I'll just end here and please welcome Ms. Lucy Jones, an excellent facilitator, very experienced facilitator, and she has already done one workshop with us in summer. But this version is a much, much improved version, she told us. So this is a very small group, and I think you have an excellent 2-day of workshop to learn from her. Thank you.
So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the ICPD. And ICPD beyond 2014. We're going to look at what is ICPD and why it's still important. So first of all, what's ICPD? Who knows what ICPD is? Can anyone give me an idea, a brief idea of what they think ICPD is? Okay. Any ideas? Well, okay, let's... Okay, so ICPD was the International Conference on Population and Development. And this was a very important conference that took place initially in Cairo in 1994. So quite a long time ago, the first one. And it was a conference that looked at the big social, economic, and environmental issues of the day, but through a lens of rights and empowerment. So what made the ICP different and what made the ICPD important to future development was 2 key things, I would say. The first one was it didn't treat issues in isolation. So before then, with development, people would look at population issues. They'd look at education issues. Maybe they'd look at women's empowerment. But the ICPD was very instrumental in putting these issues together and in saying that people's lives don't fit into slots of education or reproduction or development or population growth. People live complicated lives and these issues need to be looked at all together. And the second very important thing that the ICP did was it looked at development through a rights perspective. So it said, rather than saying we're talking about population growth, it said we're talking about individuals and their lives and their rights. We're bringing together human rights and development. And I think today, when we say these things, it sounds obvious. But in 1994, when the ICPD took place, it wasn't. And the ICPD was really quite revolutionary in putting forward these ideas. It looked at the big issues of population, health, sexual and reproductive health, reproductive rights, the environment, human rights. It brought all these issues together in a very holistic way. So I just want to show you just a quick video of somebody who attended the original ICPD conference. And she's just talking a little bit about why this was important to her and what ICPD meant to her.
For me, personally, it was an exciting experience because I lived it through. I was in the debates with the conservative governments, with the NGOs, so it's as if it's yesterday. And suddenly, we had a new paradigm, which is the reproductive health. It's not sexuality, it's not gynecological disorders, but something that really encompasses the whole spectrum of one's life. So sexual and reproductive health was an eye-opener for all of us who knew the issues, but at the same time couldn't articulate it so clearly. So we had this big umbrella, women's issues, violence against women, and the need to invest more in those issues. So I think it's a very big step forward. It's really a big step forward, and it's almost as if we went into an enlightened stage of where we could identify the individuals rather than seeing them as a big faceless group of people that lived on this planet. So for me it has a personal meaning. Professionally, I thought this was a very big step forward. I still work at it at my age, and I'm excited.
So that's just somebody who actually attended the ICPD talking about it, and you can really get a sense of how monumental it felt to this particular delegate. The UN did a series of interviews with people who'd attended the conference just to really kind of share that and help retain the memory of that important transition that took place in the approach to development and population development issues. So we're going to move on now to talking about the new SDG framework, to talking about the Sustainable Development Goals. So, what are they? What stage are we at? What remains to be done? And I know there's going to be varying levels of knowledge in this room about the SDGs. So we're going to start from the beginning because it can also serve as a refresher for those of you who do know more. Okay, so moving on to talk about the Sustainable Development Goals. This is the new development framework, the development framework that has taken over from the Millennium Development Goals that came to an end in 2015. So what are they? And as you can see here, and as we've been discussing, there are 17 goals under the Sustainable Development Goals. So these were adopted by 193 countries. They were adopted at the UN summit in New York in September 2015, so fairly recently. 17 goals and 169 targets. Yeah, so they're wider than the Millennium Development Goal framework, which only included 8 goals. Okay, so these are much wider here. What they do is they seek to build on the MDGs and they seek to complete what the MDGs didn't achieve. And they seek to include what the MDGs admitted. The world learnt a lot during the time frame of the MDGs, and there's been a lot of effort to try and ensure that the SDGs are broader and they're more inclusive than the MDGs. Okay, so how is ICPD Beyond 2014 reflected in the SDGs? So, okay, so the main goals reflecting ICPD in the SDGs are 3, 4, and 5. We've already had a bit of a discussion here about how a lot of the SDGs are relevant to people's lives, and we've had a discussion about why only 10 are included here. But we're going to concentrate on these 3, just because they're the ones that include most of the goals and most of the direct linkages with ICPD. Okay, goal 3, ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being for all at all ages. So this includes a lot of the elements of the ICPD. If you get a chance to have a look at the handout I've given you, you'll see, in particular, goal 3.1. And goal 3.1 is by 2030, reduce the global maternal mortality ratio to less than 70 per 100,000 live births. Yeah, so that's a key goal there. And by 2030, ensure universal access to sexual and reproductive health care services, including for family planning, information and education, and the integration of reproductive health into national strategies and programs. Okay? So I'm making you aware of those 2 particular goals so that when you speak to your governments at a later date about ensuring ICPD is included in your SDG national plans, these are some of the goals that will help you make the linkages between ICPD and the SDGs. Ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. I want you to be aware of target 4.7, yeah? Under goal 4, 4.7. By 2030, ensure that all learners acquire knowledge and skills to promote sustainable development, including human rights, gender equality, and promotion of a culture of peace and non-violence. So under this one, this also includes human rights and gender equality. So people don't automatically make the link with goal 4 and some of the ICPD goals, but it's one you should be aware of. And the final one we're going to look at is goal 5, which is achieving gender equality and empowerment for all women and girls. And this goes back to the point Bhutan raised earlier about the centrality of women in ICPD. And this is the key Sustainable Development Goal, which is looking at gender equality. In particular, 5.6, goal 5.6, yeah, which is to ensure universal access to sexual reproductive health and reproductive rights as agreed in accordance with the Programme of Action of the ICPD. Yeah? And this is really important because when you're questioning your governments about what sexual reproductive health and rights measures they're taking, Goal 5 explicitly says that this is about the ICPD Programme of Action. So everything that's not included in the SDGs can be included by through this goal. Does that make sense? Yeah? So that's important to be aware of that. Also, I want you to be aware under goal 5.6 that it says, as agreed in accordance with the Programme of Action of the ICPD and the outcome documents of the review conference, yeah? Now what that means is in those outcome documents, some of them go beyond the original conference agreements. They take it even further. So that means that you can actually say to your governments, look, under this goal, it's signed up to ICPD and the outcome documents of ICPD. Okay, so for this second session, we're going to be looking at some of the key population and development messages. So some of the issues within ICPD, what they mean, why they're important. And we're going to look at these issues in particular: sexual reproductive health and rights, gender equality and women's empowerment, rights-based development, so the integration of human rights into development, and finally we're going to be looking at the demographic dividend. Okay, sexual reproductive health and rights. This is the first thing we're going to look at. And you will have already heard a lot of mention of sexual reproductive health and rights, SRHR, which is obviously a very key component to ICPD. I'm just going to show you a little clip talking about the importance of sexual reproductive health and rights. We're going to have a bit of a discussion now about gender equality and women's empowerment, and this is really kind of moving forward, I think, from the discussions that we've already been having. Let's just have a look at a few things around gender equality. So, UN Women talk about the importance of gender equality, and they say it's important because it's a moral and ethical imperative to realize the human rights, dignity, and capabilities of women. UN Women say when women and girls have more equality, there is greater economic, social, and environmental progress. There's a multiplier effect, and we've already touched on this. But basically, we know that when women and girls are able to go to school, they can contribute to the economy. That's double the number of people able to contribute to your economies. And also, when women and girls are more empowered, they have improved health. They have improved health. They understand when to access health. They understand about reproductive health, about pre- and postnatal care. They understand about family planning, about spacing their children, and so on and so forth. So these are just 3 areas of importance that UN Women point out that I wanted to share with you. And I'm going to show you also a video from UN Women. And it's just really kind of highlighting some of these issues of the importance of gender equality and how it can transform societies. So. Okay, so I just wanted to share that with you because I think it kind of really brings out the key issues around women's equality and why it's important. Okay, just a few statistics. I mean, just this, well, one key statistic. Every extra year of education for a girl is associated with a 10 to 20% increase in income. So every single extra year in school is associated with an increase in income for that woman later of 10 to 20%. So if you think about the aggregate impact that can make if girls stay in school longer. But for girls to be able to stay in school longer, they need to have more control over their lives. Yeah, and they need the support to be able to do that. I'm just going to show you a quick video about the demographic dividend, just so you'll get an understanding of what that means. Yeah, and after that we'll wrap up. We'll wrap up for lunch. Yeah. Okay.
The demographic dividend is the accelerated economic growth that can happen as the population age structure changes, together with strategic investments in health, education, economic policy, and governance. The starting point is the population age structure and how many dependent children there are in relation to the older working age population. If the average number of births per woman decreases, the population age structure begins to change. As the number of births each year declines, the young dependent population grows smaller in relation to the working age population. With more workers and fewer young people to support, a country has a window of opportunity for accelerated economic growth, known as the demographic dividend. Changing the population age structure hinges on lowering fertility through three key investments: access to voluntary family planning, improved child health, and education. Investments in health, education, economic policies, and good governance are necessary to transform the changing age structure into the accelerated economic growth and prosperity of a demographic dividend.
Okay, guys, I just wanted to make you aware of that issue because it is one of the issues under ICPD that's important, and I think also in a lot of Asian countries, we're not just talking about large young populations, we're also talking about aging populations, so I wanted to bring that up. Okay, we're going to just watch a small film really about adolescence and SRHR, just a small clip. And then we're going to do some thinking amongst ourselves about advocacy for SRHR and adolescents within your country contexts. So if I could get your attention for this short film.
Today, more than half of the world's young people live in the Asia-Pacific region. That's 60% of all people between 10 and 24. Their potential and their contributions are critical to the current and future well-being of the whole planet. Unfortunately, many of these young people face sexual and reproductive health challenges that can hold them back. Pregnancy-related complications are one of the leading causes of death for girls between 15 and 19 among developing countries. There are about 6 million adolescent pregnancies in the Asia-Pacific region each year, with many of these pregnancies among girls married as children, under the age of 18 and in some cases many years younger. There are nearly 11 million unsafe abortions every year in this region. 1/3 of these are among young women under the age of 25. The vast majority of adolescents don't have access to any form of contraception, despite the clear need for it. Why is this? Sometimes young people don't know about their contraceptive options, or are embarrassed and fearful to ask for it. And in some countries, laws prohibit the access of sexual and reproductive health services, including contraception, to unmarried people. In the Asia-Pacific region, there are 500,000 young people living with HIV. 95% of the 10,000 new infections among young people every year occur among certain groups. Yet only 30% of young men and less than 20% of young women have comprehensive knowledge of HIV. That leaves a majority of the young people who need this information and support on their own and in the dark. Look, there is no single solution, big or small. Instead, what we need are interlinked actions. Let's start with something fundamental: comprehensive sexuality education, which is age-appropriate and non-judgmental, is accurate and delivered by trained teachers, and is supported both in and out of schools. But comprehensive sexuality education will not work if there are no youth-friendly sexual and reproductive health services and counseling. And that must be private and confidential, affordable, accessible to all, delivered by trained providers. To enable young people to access these services, we must enact laws and policies that respect and protect their sexual and reproductive rights by ensuring their access to contraception and removing barriers based on age and marital status. Here's our responsibility to improve young people's sexual and reproductive lives. We need to support comprehensive sexuality education. We need to ensure that young people have full access to sexual and reproductive health services. We must amend or enact laws and policies that respect young people's sexual and reproductive rights. Let's create a world where young people's sexual and reproductive health and rights are promoted and protected. And let's do it now.
Thank you to UNFPA again for that video about adolescent SRH. I just want us to have a bit of a think about those issues. And if you look at session 3 in your booklets, the second page is a number of questions. Number of questions. So you have 4 questions here, and within your country groups, session 3. Yeah. So within your country groups, could you please, first of all, just have a discussion amongst yourselves about on these questions and answer them, and then we'll feed back to the wider group, and we can have a discussion about some of the issues. Okay? Thanks. Do we have any volunteers for starting? Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Afghanistan.
Actually, it's quite, familiar in Afghanistan and just quite applicable. But in somehow, we can bring some changes in underage by, broadcasting, by TV media, by, giving awareness, education, the people. That might be, have the possibility that we can do it, but in the long-term strategy, but not in the short term. And also, in the meantime, forced marriage, which is also quite common. Forced marriage, but this might take times. We can, bring some change and bring amendment even to the law, something like that, that the forced marriage should not be anymore. But because beyond and despite all of that, there is some other issues I just want to share with you. That, for instance, if there is fighting in between 2 families or 2 tribes, or from one of the tribes, one person is going to get killed, but we have a kind of elders of council of elders. The council of elders is going to discuss and give one daughter to the other tribes because to stop the future revenge and everything. That's also a big challenge in Afghanistan, and maybe, but it's also a possibility to control it. And the other marches about kind of, for instance, if from a family going to get married with daughter of somebody, but from that family is going to get married with daughter or sister of this. This is also very complicated because as an MP, we're just going to call it exchange, something like that, as an MP, but most of the family comes to us. When a problem creates with A family, the B family is also going to be affected. That is not going to be secure because the family of A family is saying that why your sister is not in good, happy life, you also should, create problem for that. But it's not just only one family, the two families will sacrifice in this regards. And other issues also, when brothers are going to get killed or die, so in the culture traditionally, but somehow maybe in the past it was quite common, but nowadays people are just highly educated, do not do that, but still in the province and rural areas this is also quite common. When the brother is going to die or get killed, but the other brother is going to get married with the wife of the brother. This is also very not good. And about the sexual education in Afghanistan, according to the law, it's prohibited, but in somehow, because some schools, the female and male school are separated, and in some of female schools in 12th grade, there is going to teach them, there is a subject which called home affairs or house affairs, what you call. They're going to, tell about for only just for females, not for male, indirectly, how they're just going to be, in terms of sex education, but indirectly, but not all in detail, just kind of indications.
Sorry, did you say that that's in private schools?
No, it's not in private. It's quite common in private and public school.
Yeah.
In city, in center of the city.
Okay, so it's government-funded schools where that's occurring.
No.
It's
Official ministers. That's not something.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in also this about the religious subject is going to be taught in the schools, but they also indirectly kind of pointed out. This is what we have discussed here. Maybe if something is left, my colleagues, CMP, or maybe friends, they can.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Lots of issues there.
Just 2 quick points. In Afghanistan, we came up with this book with the permission of Ministry of Hajj. This is called Islam and Family, which was supported by many parliamentarians as well as a lot of clerics. So that was one book. Another was the Al-Azhar University in Egypt. So there was a group of clerics whom we supported to visit in Egypt and come back with some kind of progressive messaging around SRHR. At this point of time, we don't know what's happening and where is that group, but that kind of initiative was taken. And the third one is in Bangladesh, we are providing comprehensive sexual education through madrasas. So the children who are in boarding or full-time coming and studying in the madrasas, I don't know if it's called madrasas in Afghanistan as well, the Religious Institute of Learning. Yeah, yes, exactly. So through them we are providing, directly that, and it's working well. So that's one kind of case study if you want to, learn from there.
I'm sorry, I'm not just going to go for dialect because of the madrasa. I'm just going to, give some points. We are not just pro madrasa because it's in Pakistan. If it goes to madrasa, they're going to train terrorists, honestly. We had in the past kind of a mosque for preschool. For preschool, the students the children used to go to mosque for preschool to be ready. But madrasa is totally different. The madrasa which you have, mindset from Pakistan is totally different because they are totally changing the mindset of kids. Encourage them for radicalism, encourage them for extremism. We don't want that type of madrasa.
I was referring to Bangladesh.
Yeah. Even Bangladesh, whoever, because we are not, happy that our children should go for that type of madrasa, which is to Pakistan, because to encourage terrorists or maybe encourage extremism, radicalism.
Okay, thanks for that. I see your point. I mean, for me, what's very interesting is what Nurha's saying about managing to have some comprehensive sexuality education within the madrasa environment. Forget really, you know, I mean, obviously, whether you're for or against madrasas, it's the ability to have that education. And my understanding would be that that education would be tailored to only cover the subjects that would be suitable and acceptable within that environment, but it's still a start and it can still help improve adolescents' lives. So I'm wondering whether at some stage, you know, you could speak to each other about how that was done and how the information was presented, because that might be useful for the Afghanistan context. Okay, thank you guys. Okay, who'd like to go next? Bhutan, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to present the Bhutanese perspective on SRHR on adolescents. First of all, I'd like to say in Bhutan, health service and education service is free. It's through and through very free, number one. And therefore, accordingly, adolescent SR is taken care in three ways. Number one, in education, we have in science subject right from kindergarten level, we develop the curriculum on sexual and health studies. So as students grow, they learn about sexual and reproductive health. For example, by the time girls and boys reach age of 14, 15, in science subject, they learn about themselves. So automatically it gets taught in the schools. Then as they go to high school and college, they further learn about pregnancy, the issues related to the women. It becomes more deeper and deeper. So this is possible because in our society accepts there is no taboo, there is nothing, we have no religious what you call bar or cultural bar. But together with that, it doesn't mean that the society is so free that I mean people don't care about I mean their life, but there is a certain level of cultural control, the societal control. So, but it's free to learn about sex, talk about sex. It's taught in school. So that is one way. Second way is the Ministry of Health has a comprehensive program on teenage pregnancy, drug-related issues is being advocated in media, advocated by the health workers in the villages, in the urban areas. Meetings are carried out. Parents are made aware of the issues, and then parents accordingly, the citizens accordingly give feedback to the health workers. So accordingly, the problem is solved. So second way we address adolescent SRHR is through health divisions policies is open and transparent. And third is, so when education and the health ministry makes open information on adolescent issues, teenage pregnancy, drug-related issues, automatically people get involved. So public also are aware of what is health doing and what is education doing. So therefore, parents are also aware. They are cautious of the behavior of their children. So at home, parents also talk to the children about the risk of adolescent sex and then the teenage pregnancy and all. So therefore, it gets addressed in three areas. And accordingly, we have many civil society organizations. We have National Commission for Women and Children, which look after the women's issue and children's issue, and of course, most of the time, the adolescent problems. If there is a problem, I mean, teenage pregnancy, the girl is not left just like that. Once legal issue is sorted out, the girl delivers baby, And once the child is of 1 year old, the girl goes back to the school. We take in the young mother back to school. So there is a continuation of education. So we don't just neglect and keep it there.
Thank you very much. That's very interesting. And it's interesting as well that you've managed to integrate CSE right through your educational system. And I think what's interesting is that in some ways, for example, Bhutan is a country where abortion is only legal under very limited circumstances. And in some ways, there are conservative elements to your society, but you still have integrated CSE in a way that works for your society and for your culture. And I'm wondering, with Afghanistan, if you wanted to advocate for CSE, you could take a similar approach. You don't have to include all the elements that would be unacceptable culturally and for your religion. You could just take initially the elements that would work, with your advocacy work.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We have been talking all throughout the morning, so nothing new. It's a small group. So I would like to keep it informal, and please stop me at any point of time wherever I'm going fast, or if you would like to add anything to what I'm saying. I think Lucy has very meticulously already covered a lot of points, so I will try to skip wherever I was planning to go into the details. But to start with, one thing I would like to say or start with is, whether it's SDGs, whether it's ICPD, or any work around SRHR, it is not just about girls. If you're talking about reproductive health, if you're talking about sexual health and rights, we are here not talking just about girls. It's equally applicable for boys, it is equally applicable for men as much as for women and girls. Secondly, the moment we start talking about SRHR, unfortunately, the issues which catch our attention always are abortion, comprehensive sexuality education, and gender identity. But in reality, SRHR is much, much more than that. It includes our population policies, includes our contraceptive prevalence rates, it includes work on HIV/AIDS, it includes work on gender-based violence, it includes work on rape, on fertilities. There's so much on our day-to-day planning processes or in the population development processes which we talk about are part of SRHR. That's why whenever you talk or meet any advocate from the SRHR field, they'll say that SRHR is at the core of development. But when we limit our thoughts only to abortion and CSE, sometimes people wonder, people are dying of hunger, people are dying of wars, and you're talking about abortion and sexuality education? No. We're talking about an individual who has the right to know, has the right over their body, and they decide what they want to do with themselves, whom to marry, how many people, how many children they have, at what age they get married. So there are various these are the basic issues which actually impact overall development, whether it's economy or the political new things which we see in the world. One aspect is during the MDG formulation, one very important group which actually got overlooked was the parliamentarians and the parliaments also, because they were not very well involved, and the result was that throughout the MDG implementation and now when the MDG evaluations are taking place, actually parliamentarians have not a very detailed role to play. Some of them, as their personal champions and as their personal interests, did take part in it, but there was no procedure to it. But how we ensure that it remains now for the next 15 years, that is one of the key roles. Second, and most important, which I think whomsoever you work with will not happen, is the parliamentarians hold the purse strings. You will ensure how much noise is made in the governments, in the parliament, that which issue get how much funds. And most of the countries, how they function, especially in South Asia, we have democratic governments. So the way funds are decided, even ministries don't decide how much funds they are going to get. have the means, you have the means, and you represent. You represent a larger electorate, you represent a large group of individuals who are waiting and seeing what you're doing there. Now quickly talking about, why it is important to talk about this one aspect is, and where role of organizations like IPPF and AFPPD comes in, that historically, we don't have an institutional form of communicating with the parliamentarians. If you see, like, every ministry have their task force or committees or subcommittees where experts can go talk and sit with the bureaucrats or the CSOs, come together and talk that, this is what is happening, this is where the programs are. But parliamentarians, who are actually the most representative form of government, we don't have any formal systems of sitting with them and communicating and updating them at the regular level that, this is what is happening. So this is where, like, forums like this, so this is where we meet our parliamentarians the most, which are the conferences, which are the platforms like created by AFPPD most of the times, and various other international forums. So it is very important from here that, our relationship building starts, and then we start talking to each other. We understand where are the strengths of each other lies. So knowing the partners well, I'm not saying this restrict to IPPF or to restrict it to AFPPD, but maybe a larger group, and find out, like, who are those individuals or organizations who know the subject best. Now what do we expect and where our role comes in? We are from, like, take actions. What happens is, most of the time, invite, like, most of your countries have parliamentarian committees on population, on health, on HIV. In those health meetings, please invite the experts to talk to the larger group. Maybe, or from the ministry or the bureaucrat representatives who is the point person on the particular issue you pick up. Ask the parliamentarian questions, like what is going on in the country and what are the most relevant issues. Introduce reports and motions to the, in the lower house or upper house or the legislative assemblies. Organize events. Like the way CSOs are organizing, if the similar thing can happen from the other side, it will be much, much more influential, because the power of when a parliamentarians call for an event, then what other side calls for the event is really different. Contact national delegations. Now what is happening is, and which is again a reality, is the negotiations Madam Vipralvi was asking in the morning, that who decides this? How did it happen? It's like, because someone in the foreign affairs actually represented the country and finalized everything. And many a times, the viewpoints of the person who is representing the country at the UN delegations outside is entirely different to what the country policies are. Some of your countries have amazing policies and very progressive policies, but it never reaches to the foreign affairs. So the viewpoint they take at the international forum is sometimes entirely different. So if you are interested, find out who are the delegation who are representing us there. What are they talking about? Be accountable. Report back on your experiences. So going back and telling to your, I am aware of many of the parties have this system of, like, meeting biannually or annually, bringing issues like technical subjects like this, that there was a meeting like this is an upcoming event, that this could be of interest. So things like that. And the same, talking to NGOs working on SDGs. Speak about your experiences during parliamentarians meeting. When in the motion you speak about or make a speech, those are the times when you can make a reference. Talk to media, relevant ministries, create visibility. Now, so most of you have Facebook accounts, Twitter accounts, and most of you actually have a huge fan following also. Because as citizens, the individual whom we vote, or the ministers, or the parliamentarians who are there, the citizens love to follow them, what they are saying, what are they doing, those basics. So if you can, on regular basis, post something, have some kind of media releases, release some statements, give some words on international days. Just tap, like, for example, the International HIV Day is coming. So if you want to talk something around it, then demonstrate commitments, then write blogs. Some of you, if write blogs, articles on your blog's website and Facebook, Twitter pages. This brings in our roles. So everything what we are saying that, please do this, or we will urge you to do some similar kind of activities. These are the places where we can play a role. Where is, sorry, I'd like, okay. So we can help you in content support, because there are technical experts, which what we mentioned, like, on specific subjects. For example, if it's on SRHR, from someone from AFPPD, IPPF, or any other organization will be happy to work with you. If you are making a speech somewhere at the relevant platform, you can always write to us and get back to us that, we need some kind of information or evidence. We can provide you evidence on that. Then there are some important events and meetings happen, which is already happening, that we ensure that most of the parliamentarians are present in those international events or are aware of what's happening in those events. Then media partnership, again, we can help you in getting closer to the media, getting media statements for you. Then contextual messaging, if you are keen to work on a subject, just let us know that, these are the subjects we are interested in, and if you would like to provide some information on it. So these are the kind of things we can work together. There have been, for taking SDGs forward, we need a lot of visibility about the issue, we need resources about the issues, and we need the attention of on the issue. These are some of the stories. Quickly, I'll just take you along that, what worked for us in IPPF and how parliamentarians played a very important role. In Sri Lanka, we were able to get the national youth policy just with the support of the parliamentarian champions. They stood by us. Legalizing abortion. This is where we worked with parliamentarians and faith leaders. And there was a change in the law on abortion in Maldives. So, and the work with the CSO and religious leaders was the key learning for us. Then Bhutan, he was already mentioning, so our member association Renew is like IPPS member association. So the Queen Mother Sangye Chodin Wangchuk, she was another one champion for us, and she was able to bring it to the parliament, and this bill was passed, and now they have a Domestic Violence Act bill. Again, in Pakistan, we were able to bring the Child Marriage Act in the provinces of Sindh and Punjab. So just because the parliamentarians stood with us and they were able to shout it loud in the parliaments. And then Nepal, again, the FPAN's Foundation Day was converted to National Family Planning Day, and the country has a new focus on family planning. So these are the key things. What IPPF is doing, or IPPF and AFPPD can do together. These are the kind of works which we will recommend you to take forward for advocating on work around SDGs. And to conclude, I'll just say one thing, that ultimately it's money and political will which need to come together to make SDGs declaration into action. Otherwise, it will be one lengthy document with many indicators with selective interest on selective issues. And thank you. I hope I made that.
This is going to be our final session of the day, and this is where each group is going to talk about the information sources available to you for being able to evaluate progress on ICPD, and then also talk about the priority issues that you will look at for your advocacy work. So if I could have each country group to present one by one, and rather than answering each question at a time, which I think isn't necessary, could you present under 3 headings? The first one being information sources. So talk a little bit about what information is available to you for analysing ICPD progress. And also talk about whether the information sources are sufficient or whether there are gaps in information that need to be fixed. For example, with Afghanistan, we were talking about that. Secondly, I want to talk to you about progress, ICPD. I want you to talk to me about ICPD progress, areas with good progress, areas with poor progress, And then finally, the priority issues that you would like to select for your advocacy work. So if you could give your presentation under those 3 different headings, that would be great.
For family planning or don't have more children in Afghanistan, there are different ministries like Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Women Affairs, Ministry of Culture and Information, and also Ministry of Hajj. They can combine through by the advertise by different media, by different TVs and radios, and also published media like brochure, banners, and also by the mosques mic with by mullahs, especially during the Fridays praying, because Afghanistan is a religion society. They has more trust to mullahs, and also working with men about this issue than women, because there is a big problem Afghan women has with not just in this issue, in different problems with men. We should work a lot work with men, and also this campaigners, they should show the reason for this planning. For example, the mullah says in Shariat, a child has need for good food and good health and good clothes, good education and good habits individually. And also in social, the government should has access to the services to people. This is the reason for this issue. And also, up till now, the government and these ministries I named, they have done something about this. Yes, we sometimes we see different banners in the different area of city or in different street and on some TVs, on some walls, some advertise, especially in the radios, because in the different provinces there is no TVs, they listen to radios. This is the simple way to campaign for this issue.
Yeah, that's great. And in terms of the issues, the priority issues for your advocacy work, where do you feel that the government isn't making progress? Whether it be gender-based violence, whether it be reducing forced marriage, do you feel there are particular issues where you could champion the issue and work with the government to improve their commitment?
I think for the forced marriage we can do somehow. It depends on how we can, do the advocacy to bring up the level of awareness, to how to educate, people that, they should understand about, the pros and cons of the forced marriage and everything. And I'm just going to come on the family planning. Besides, for highly educated people in Afghanistan, for educated, they are not, they have, family planning. But unfortunately, for some rural areas, they do not have. But the main other problem is about the family planning in Afghanistan. As culturally and traditionally, and the grandfather or the father encouraged son, because saying that, my rival, they have a son of 10 children, 10 kids. Well, you should not have. Because if you're just going to make it strong enough, the village, but it's not quite applicable everywhere of Afghanistan, but some rural areas, it's quite applicable. That tribe is, they have 9 sons, you should have at least 6 sons.
So if the government is going to tackle some of these issues, not only does it need to improve family planning provision, it maybe needs to help tackle some of the cultural reasons why families continue to have many children. Do we have any questions for Afghanistan from any of the other participants?
This is not directly related to what you have explained to us, but there are one indicators in SDG, the health indicators, which are going to be a very, very important indicator, which is out-of-pocket expenses. Like how much portion of money that each family is spending for health expenses, how much the government covers for you, and how much money you have to pay for yourselves. And Afghanistan's number, according to WHO, is pretty high, 70% out-of-pocket expenses. That means 30% covered by the government, but 70% for medical expenses you have to pay yourself. And if we compare to other countries in here, like Bhutan, 25%, and India, 58%, Indonesia, 45%. So Afghanistan is pretty high in the individual burden. So how do you see this issue and any issues that MPs are working on?
I think your point is quite relevant to let me just one step back. The current situation, give an explanation. I think in the morning you also just pinpoint that unfortunately the stability and security we are just facing now is a big challenge. And all the sectors totally, even the more than 65% or 80% of our budget allocated for security. That's a big challenge. And the governments, the leaderships totally now just going to keep focus on security and also stability. And even though in some of a small part, we just not care. And in terms of your questions about maybe I can say during the 20 years back, we had Republican. During that times, during the Commons regime, during that time, even health service, education service was totally free. And even you not just covered 70% by your own pocket. Even the government was able to 80% just covered by the government, 20% by person. But now the situation is totally changed, because in spite or despite, in addition, we have the government hospital, we have many private clinics. And that's the point, that these private clinics or private hospitals, so encouraging people that they should pay more money. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Do we have any more questions or points to raise for Afghanistan on their presentation? Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone, for all your work today, and you've really contributed to the conversation. You've really paid a lot of attention to lots of long presentations and lots of information coming your way. So I'm very grateful for that. That's wonderful. As I mentioned at the beginning of today was about looking at the information in the toolkit and bringing us all up to speed on the key issues of ICPD, the SDGs, and some of the ICPD themes, such as sexual reproductive health and rights that we've discussed at length. Tomorrow will be a day when we talk about actually carrying out advocacy with your governments and how you can go about designing advocacy programs that make a difference. So tomorrow's going to be quite interactive, and there'll be quite a lot of thinking and sharing that you'll all need to do. And today's going to also be more demanding in terms of you guys doing some work to think about developing advocacy strategies as well. Okay, so we're going to start off with a quick presentation, really, about championing the ICPD agenda within your countries. And, okay, so what we're going to be looking at is, as you know, the SDG framework starts from the 1st of January 2016. But we're looking at what's going to be happening within your countries to develop your own national SDG plans. Okay, and how is the SDG framework going to be developed within each of your countries? We know we have the 17 goals, and we know we have the 169 targets, but what does that mean for your individual countries, and how is that going to get played out? So, one of the things we know is that countries are encouraged not to develop parallel or duplicating systems. So when you have these 169 targets under the SDGs, rather than developing a whole new framework within your country for measuring them and for producing indicators and so forth, what really will be happening is that many countries already have existing national plans. Maybe you have a 20-year plan, a 15-year plan, and so countries are being encouraged to have a look at their existing plans and their existing policies and existing legislation and say, what do we already have, what already exists within our plans that fits with the SDGs? Yeah? And I think most countries will find that a lot of the information in the SDGs is already included in their existing national plans and policies and legislation. And the exercise will therefore be to find out what isn't included and how that can be integrated within your existing systems. So really, this point, so countries will review their plans to assess whether they are comprehensive or need expanding or strengthening. So for example, if you, under goal number 5 for women's equality and empowerment, it will be a matter of looking at the targets and saying, you know, does our country already include these targets within the plans and within the policies? And then the next stage will be developing the indicators for the SDGs, yeah? So it's one thing having targets, but how are you going to measure these? How are you going to measure these? And the main point is that the first thing that's going to happen is that a global indicator framework for the SDGs is going to be developed. Yeah, and that hasn't been developed yet. It still hasn't been developed. Okay, so a group called the Interagency and Expert Group has been set up by the UN Statistical Commission to put together an indicator framework, a global indicator framework for all the SDGs. And there's 28 member states included in the IAEG putting that together at the moment. So what they're going to do is they're going to put together the global framework and make the recommendation, but this won't be presented until March 2016. Yeah? So there won't even be a global indicator framework until March 2016. So in terms of your own countries developing their indicators, this won't happen until the global one has been finalized and has been approved and agreed, yeah? So in order to influence the development of your country's SDG plan, there are a number of things that you need to understand. So one of them is, you know, what is the process for developing and approving the SDG plan and monitoring framework in your country? Is it going to be a matter of a particular group who will review existing policies and existing plans and find the gaps? Is a new system going to be developed? What's the process? What's the timeline? Yes, you can ask parliamentary questions, but can there be some more involvement? What's the consultation process with civil society, with parliamentarians? Where does responsibility lie for this process? Who's going to be making the key decisions? And finally, what partnerships will strengthen and inform your advocacy efforts? If you do want to try and influence the process, and if you do, we talked about the issues that are most important yesterday, and the issues that you would select for your advocacy work, and the issues that you really, really feel must be included in these SDG plans. Yeah? What partnerships will give you information, will give you statistics, and will give you the means to help your advocacy be stronger and more informed and more effective? And these are some of the things that we're going to be looking at today. We're now going to talk about the importance of partnerships and the importance of working in partnership. We're now going to talk about the importance of working in partnership with other groups and other stakeholders to make your advocacy more effective. Yeah? So when I talk about partnerships, I'm talking about, as parliamentarians, who can you work with to help you in your advocacy work? And that might be, for example, who could provide you with information? Who can provide you with information, for example, that will give you better facts and figures so that when you try and speak to your governments about particular issues, you can be more persuasive, yeah? And you can be better informed. So the question really is, why is it important to build strong partnerships for effective advocacy? And one of the answers to that question is that advocacy is a numbers game. If you have an issue that you really want to champion with your government, if there are many groups and people supporting the issue, it shows broad constituency support. So it's more likely your government will take you seriously if it realizes that there's a lot of support for the issue concerned. So for example, if you were to form partnerships with media groups who were able to spread messages to gain support amongst the general public, that could show the government that lots of people are interested and care about the issue. Another reason to form partnerships is that different partners bring different skills, knowledge, and contributions to an advocacy campaign. Yesterday, we heard from Neha, the representative of IPPF South Asia Regional Office, and she was basically saying, as parliamentarians, if you need any information, any statistics, if you want us to help write to speech for you, we're here to help you. So, for example, by working with civil society, it can make your advocacy more effective. We now have a presentation from Geeta Sethi, who comes from the Family Planning Association of India, which is a very important NGO within this country. And she's going to talk to you a little bit about the work of FPAI and also about how you can work in partnership with organizations such as FPAI to really kind of make progress on your work. So, Geeta, welcome.
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to really thank AFPPD, IAPPD, the people of Japan, and UNFPA for bringing us all together to talk about this. Because I feel that the Sustainable Development Goals are going to be the framework within which we do the kind of development work we would like to be doing. And so it's important that we understand it. And there's this framework that applies everywhere. I think we need to advocate to make sure that that framework reflects the needs that are important to us in our countries. So we need to advocate that what's important for us, I mean, now that's happened, but we need to keep it up in terms of the indicators, in terms of how it's actually rolled out in our countries. So to make it relevant to our specific situation, we need to be advocating for it. We need to make sure there are adequate resources for it, because we all know the whole funding architecture is changing, and more countries are being called to be self-reliant, to look at new sources of funding. So we need to advocate for those as well. And for all this to happen, for these priorities to be recognized and translated into action, it needs us as civil society to be partnering closely with parliamentarians. And I would really like to acknowledge IAPPD, who we have been taking this forward with. So why should CSOs be involved? And I saw from this, I was very happy to see that a lot of what I'm going to say is actually up on what came from you. But why should CSOs be involved? One is the SDGs, unlike the MDGs that came before, were developed through a participatory process. And CSOs are on the ground. I think you saw our pictures of where we work and where our offices are, our branches are. So we know what the issues, what the real problems of people are, and we can bring them to the table, we can bring them. Similarly, parliamentarians are also all aware of the situation in their constituencies. It was in February that we had an interaction with parliamentarians where they came up with some excellent examples of what's happening on the ground, including things like because of the sex ratio in India, where there are far fewer females than males, where young girls are being kidnapped and forced to have children for other people and then discarded because they don't want these tribal girls, but they want the child for the family. So from issues like this, which come from the ground, from parliamentarians and from civil society, it's a way for us to put our voices together and bring these issues and as parliamentarians, you take them to the places where it counts. So we feel that engaging parliamentarians is essential, which is why we are all here. And as I said, we've had a wonderful partnership with ICPD. In February, we had our first interaction around this, where basically we listened to the experiences of parliamentarians, because many of them have been in this for a long time and know what the situation in the ground is. Then in June, we had a national consultation with parliamentarians on the SDGs. And actually, we were surprised that for many of the parliamentarians, it was the first time they heard about the SDGs. So we realized that there's a huge gap in terms of information and understanding of the SDGs out there. One sort of expects that everybody knows these things by diffusion or something. But no, it doesn't happen. So we realized we have to do a lot more in terms of strengthening this understanding. So what we then did is we took this to 2 states, because India has a federal structure, and we worked at the state level as well. There were 2 consultations in Orissa and Haryana, where it was at the state level. We also tried to look at regional participation in regional forums, and looking at how we engage in the future, with the formulation of indicators, accountability, the whole rollout.
That was incredibly interesting. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions or comments about the information that you just presented?
Thank you, Mrs. Sethi. I think all the goals covered under SDGs, these all are very close to heart of every parliamentarians. But as parliamentarian, we need simplification of our role. If you simplify our role so that we can adjust ourselves to achieve these goals, you can prepare a to-do list or step-by-step action plan for us. That will be more beneficial and a simple way to do our own work. And if any effort on your part to simplify these roles in such a way that every parliamentarian think that this will broaden their political base. Every political party, they should feel that if they take up these issues in public, then this will be helpful to gain votes. So, your presentation is excellent, but we need further simplification so that we can take it in these issues in public in a simplified manner. Thank you.
Point well taken, and I think we are trying to look at how we can simplify and come up with specific points. I also understand fully your point about these issues being something that should appeal to the political base, because we all know these are difficult issues. We all know whether it's contraception for young people, whether it's looking at gender equality, whether it's looking at abortion, these are all difficult issues. And yes, I think we need to look at how we present them so that we look at how they are empowering young people and giving them a better opportunity in life, and not something that's actually going against our beliefs or something. You know, how do we put it in a way? And to me, that's what advocacy is about. You know, the reason we do it is not because we want to, we do it because we want to save that young person's life, both literally and in other ways. So how do we get these messages across?
We don't want these type of things in the language and voice of an expert.
Exactly.
We needs in the words and language of a politician or layman.
Yes, and a politician.
Politician, in the language of politician means so that general public can easily adopt those points, digest those points. This can be further simplified.
Definitely. And we will work with IAPPD on doing something like that. Definitely.
Or you can, you should work, I think, with some PR agencies or especially those agencies which are covering elections, which are making manifestos, which are helping political parties to make strategies.
Right. Yes. And especially like maybe focusing on young people or something, which
naturally,
where there's such a big vote bank now.
These are very important, but how
to put them,
make it attractive for political party or politicians?
Yes.
That is the issue.
Well, thank you. That's an excellent idea.
We're about to do an exercise in a while where you're going to look at those issues and think a bit further about why the issue exists and how you can form your advocacy work around that. So we're actually kind of hopefully moving down that route. But just to re-emphasize, it is important to focus on key issues where you can actually change things and have an impact. And also you mentioned the practicality of policies. You know, can they work on the ground? And allocation of resources. So, okay, so on that point, we're going to be moving on now to the next presentation. Some other key points that we haven't yet discussed and that we're going to be looking at. You need to understand the issue you wish to champion. So including relevant policies, relevant legislation, budgeting, inclusion in national strategies. Understanding the political process, how the issue is decided, who's involved in that. And also ensuring your government is held accountable for their commitments. And this is a key part of advocacy work as well. It's one thing for your government to actually develop a policy and to develop a plan, but are they implementing it? And I think, for a lot of parliamentarians and a lot of CSO groups as well working in advocacy, sometimes the work can stop once a government has developed a policy or a plan or has made a commitment. And that really doesn't mean that the work's going to get carried out. And we're going to be talking about accountability, but accountability is a very key and important part of advocacy work. So in terms of gathering the information that you need to understand the issue, to understand where government is with policy, to understand where the gaps are, we go back once again to working in partnership with other groups. NGOs, academic research institutions. These organizations will provide you with lots of evidence, and they'll really support you in terms of your efforts. And in terms of carrying out analysis, this is work that you can do, but also you can do in partnership. Budget analysis, policy matrix analysis to understand the policy and the legislation gaps. What do you feel should be in that national plan additionally to make tackling domestic violence stronger? I mean, you mentioned the kind of links with alcohol consumption and dealing with that. I mean, do you feel there's anything missing that with your advocacy work you could encourage the government to consider?
I think on the first place, Ministry of Health must play a role, important role. At the same time, we as a citizen should take a social account. We should be socially accountable for our deeds. So in that sense, I think the people should also be responsible to know the harmful effects of the alcohol and the consequences that will be faced due to alcohol. I think it should be a collective effort of all the citizens.
Okay, so we're just going to talk a little bit about advocacy for accountability. And as I said, you know, ensuring accountability is a really key component to ensuring that the SDGs are effective. And what is accountability? What is accountability? It's not just transparency. It's not just your governments being transparent about what they're doing. It's also monitoring and tracking. So if your governments make commitments and if they sign up to plans, how can you be sure that they're actually implementing them? And the only way you can be sure is if monitoring and tracking systems are developed to actually follow whether governments have delivered on their promise. Is data being collected? Is that data accurate? Is that data broken down in a way that's meaningful for analysis, for example, by age or by gender? Is that data shared transparently? Accountability is also enforcement, ensuring that those who are responsible for gathering the data, those who are responsible for sharing, do so. And accountability is fulfillment of promises made. One other point I should add is accountability is also about collaboration and participation with other groups, such as civil society, so that when plans and programs and legislation is developed, it's truly representative of the people it's been designed to support. Okay, so we just have a few final things to do before we head off to the Parliament. Mika is going to speak to you briefly about AFPPD's strategy and the support they can provide. Following that, we're going to watch a short film that Maher has very kindly put together, a short film of the workshop. After that, I'd be grateful if you could please complete the evaluation forms that have been left on the table. Those are very, very helpful for me as a facilitator and also for AFPPD who's invested in this workshop. And any feedback, please be as honest as possible. And also point out if there's any additional support that AFPPD can provide. And finally, before you head off, we have certificates for all of you, and we also have a copy of the group photo. So please come up and collect those before we leave. So I'm going to hand over to Mika. Thank you, Mika.
Thank you very much, Lucy. I just wanted to share before closing, we have, AFPPD has adopted the new strategic guideline and the framework in the General Assembly October. So we distributed this paper. So this is basically our accountability framework of the strategy. Our goal is Sustainable Development Goals and the ICPD beyond 2014. That's the ultimate goal. But we want to make sure that all the governments who signed the Asia-Pacific Population Conference Ministerial Declaration and these commitments will be also just made in the delivered by each government. And AFPPD's strategic plans here, but we expect to have this outcome, 4 outcomes. And outcome 1 and 3 are probably directly related to your work. We want to help you having workshops like this to equip yourself with the knowledge and the skills and about the SDG. So outcome 1 and outcome 3, by doing that, we want to have our parliamentarians of AFPPD to have a political influence at the national level and the regional level and the global level. So we would like to help that. That's outcome 3. And outcome 2, we want to reach out to other parliamentarian organizations, including like World Bank Parliamentarian Group, IPU, and we want to have a partnership with these organizations to have you attend these organizations. Maybe you are already members of these organizations, but we want to have expand our the network as well, so that you can have more opportunities and you can be exposed to other opportunities to learn from each other. And last one, management output. This is my job. I have to make sure that this AFPPD will be transparent and accountable organization to achieve our objective. Our objective is to help MPs like yourselves to learn, to get what you should be able to get from us, and then serve your communities and constituencies. So this is the framework, and we are making an implementation plan. The other slide is in a nutshell of what we are thinking to do.